Good evening and welcome to Transistance, your weekly news and commentary show. Kind of connecting with items of interest around the world that have to do with transgender, non-binary, non-conforming, and intersex community, as well as the wider two-spirit LGBTQIAP+ community. I'm one of your hosts, Genevieve Bergman. We're very glad that you've joined us tonight. Now I'm going to hand this over to my co-hosts.
All right, is my mic working? It is, yay. Okay. I'm Emily. I am co-host number 2, I guess, and I'll pass it to Marla, number 3.
Number 3, ow. I'm Marla. I'm a redhead now. Surprise.
I don't know how do we do we need to figure that out. We'll take that offline sometime and figure out how to announce the different cast members, the different hosts. Like, I don't know.
In order of appearance.
Yes.
That's it. In order of ability to basically just manhandle ways through news articles. Or in this case, transhandle.
Transhandle.
I guess, I guess what we need is just a credit roll to go beforehand. And then we'll just come on and not do the intros at all. All right. Let's see if I've got this set. I don't believe, yeah, that's right. I don't believe I do have the correct window here. Always something else to set up.
And we are the professionals.
You got to the joke before me.
We're gonna work on your timing tonight, Marla.
You gotta make them wait for it.
All right. So we've got a slew of articles related to the Dakota, the Dakota bills that are going through. The first article, I believe here, Jeannie, is the trans girl pretended to break her arm so she could go to the toilet due to cruel bathroom policy. What's the basis of this policy? I'm sure we've kind of touched on it before, but this slew of articles we'll dive deeper in.
Right. This is sort of a human interest side of a story that we've covered. And in South Dakota, they had a anti-trans bathroom bill that was being pushed through. And they almost got it passed, but at the last possible moment, they decided to just say, no, we're not going to deal with this. And this father, who has been a part of trying to make changes to get this bathroom bill defeated, is interviewed in this article. And Mike Phelan is the father of a 6-year-old? Was it 6?
I'm not seeing the age here.
Very young girl.
6.
Yeah, 6-year-old girl. Who was forced to use the nurse's office bathroom because she is transgender. She was not allowed to use the girls' bathroom at 6 years old. So she was having a very difficult time explaining to her classmates why she was always having to go to the nurse's office, because they did not understand why she had to go to the bathroom there and they just went to the bathroom wherever they normally go to the bathroom. And so as a way of covering up her reason to go to the bathroom, she would carry her arm in her hand and she would tell people that her arm was broken and she needed to go see the nurse. She also cut back on fluids during the day so she would not have to go to the bathroom as much. And so she ended up, by the end of the day, being severely deficient in fluids and near dehydration. Now, where this also sort of played out was that her classmates began to worry that she had a serious illness and was even, I'm sure, rumored to have had cancer, and that's why she was always holding her arm saying it was broken. So this is a 6-year-old child who was impacted by bathroom bills just because they wanted to keep transgender girls out of girls' bathrooms.
I mean, this is heartbreaking. This one ruined my morning. Though I have to say, like, leave it to a trans girl to be that ingenuitive and know how to fucking survive,
Yeah.
even at the age of 6.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have to be that way, but here we are.
Yeah, and it's just really sad to see the collateral damage that people don't foresee when they pick out a certain class of people to harass and to limit their rights. You know,
Right.
they're like they've gotten their sights set on demonizing trans women, that, you know, they're sticking to this pedophiles, or, you know, we're just in there to skis women in the bathroom or whatever. And they've taken it to such extreme measures, they're not paying attention to who it's actually harming. And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, when someone's health is at risk because of this, I don't know how these people sleep at night.
Yeah.
But do they
Now,
actually care? Do they actually care? Like, that's my question. Do they hear the story and go, oh, maybe this isn't worth the political points? Because
right.
I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so. I think the people that push so strongly against this are so are so anti-science, anti-evidence, that
Mhm.
you bring an article like this to them, and they will claim it's some kind of a hoax, or some kind of thing that was you know, brought
Right.
forward. It's someone else's fault. It's not the fault
It's
of
a
what they're
false
doing.
flag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's false flag. Now, there is the rest of the story that goes with this. This incident regarding this particular young person and that particular school happened well before the rest of the push to get the South Dakota law pushed through. The family had been lobbying to get the bill defeated. But let's back up just a little. The family is in the Vermilion School District, and they took the issue of their daughter having to go to the nurse's bathroom all the way up to the school board. The Vermilion School District in November of last year actually passed a policy that would allow for transgender students to use the restroom that corresponds with their identity. So this school district took a step out ahead of so many other districts in conservative states that have been trying to push these anti-trans bathroom bills through. And this school district says, I quote from the school board president, Doug Peterson, "This is the policy that can be the example for the entire nation." So you were just asking, do some people get it? Yeah, they do. This is a school board member in South Dakota where those bills were being pushed, and he said, we can do better.
Do we know anything about this district
I
at
do not.
all? As far as, like, conservative,
No.
liberal leanings? I'd be interested to know.
Google's free, Marla.
What?
Google's free, Marla.
Oh, thanks. I didn't know that. I only charge people for it all the time.
No, I get it. You know, it's really confusing when you're getting your AOL bill to know exactly what it is you're paying for. So I could see where you would think that Google would be part of.
Oh my God. Really? You swinging at me? Seriously? Oh my God.
Am I about to incur a lot of wrath that's going to come back on me 10 times
Probably,
more?
yeah. Like, I can't tell you what exactly, but, like, it's coming.
Well, now she's a redhead, so she has the rage to go with it all.
Yeah. Is that why you thought I was so spicy when I came into the chat today? Is it just the red?
I mean, yeah. Part of it. Okay, let's move.
Look, Marla, I'm not gonna lie, always had a thing for redheads. Just saying.
So,
where are we going next?
Emily is now filling out the sexual harassment paperwork.
yeah, give me a real quick sec. I'm just in a quick DM with HR, and then we'll get right back to the news
We
here.
have an HR?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we do.
This is not a fly-by-night organization here, Marla.
I show up on Mondays. I don't know what goes on outside of here.
Yeah, you're truly on-screen talent, on-air talent. Like, you're here for the show that you do, and then otherwise you're off doing your own thing.
Guest star.
Yeah. Emphasis on the star.
Thank you.
I have to rack up any brownie points I can, because I gotta dig myself out of this hole. So let's keep going. There were more articles related to South Dakota, correct, Jeannie? And
Yeah,
we've got...
I mean, that, like I said, those were just supplementary. Let's move on.
Okay. So the deluge of anti-trans, part of a coordinated attack. We're moving on from that one.
Let's just little bunny foo-foo it.
Okay.
Hop right through the forest.
So what's our next one then? The
EHRC.
The EHRC. There it is. The EHRC is here to support the rights of all, whatever anyone says to the contrary. What's going on in this article, Jeannie?
So the Equality and Human Rights Commission, we've talked about this because they have been sort of backing away from supporting trans rights and in the grand scheme of diversity within the UK. And what they are doing is they are actually coming out and they are trying to gain some of their reputation back for having possibly walked away from the T in the LGBTQ. And I want to read this one paragraph. We have many and varied stakeholders, knowledgeable and effective advocates in encouraging and challenging us to address the equality and human rights issues about which they care deeply. Our relationships with civic organizations, campaigners, and those they represent are vitally important to helping to inform our thinking and our priorities. But with our vast remit and so many people and groups advocating on so many issues, it is inevitable that we can't please all of them all of the time. So, sadly, because transgender people want to be able to use bathrooms, the EHRC said, we just really can't fight that fight. So we're just going to step in and say, look, if you fill out this form so that you can get this ID, which you need this ID to get this form, then yeah, we'll support that. And now they're kind of taking that black eye and they're trying to make it into a fashion statement.
Yeah, this is, I don't know. This whole statement felt embarrassing.
Right.
Reading it all the way through. I mean, even like the final bit, like it almost felt like they were holding trans people hostage.
Yeah.
So I asked those, and it is a minority who seek to undermine the EHRC. What do they hope to achieve, and who do they think will protect and advance equality and human rights in our country if they have their wish? So basically they're being like, trans people, if you open your mouths too much, we're not going to protect anyone. Like this, like that's the way you ended your little your somewhat apology. This all seems like bullshit.
Yeah, this is the crux. Okay, they said we have also been upholding the rights of transgender people at work in recent legal interventions with employers. Where we have modified our position on self-ID for trans people or the Gender Recognition Act, we have done so because new evidence about the tension between trans and women's rights is emerging. It's only been emerging for about 7 years, but it's just now coming to the surface. So they had to walk back the idea that trans people could basically identify themselves, that they have to be, checked off of a certain system of, checklists, because the women's rights movement, which is also known as turfdom, is, basically saying, no, we're not going to let them go into our restrooms.
I mean, how many times do I have to say it? If it's not intersectional feminism, it's not feminism.
Yeah, right.
It's fascism with a bow.
And I never understand how giving someone else rights is taking away yours. I never understand the subtractional view of equal rights. High Court to hear anti-trans Christian parents challenge against primary schools. This sounds great and fun. Jeannie, what's going on here?
Once again, back to the UK, where things are always bright and shiny for the transgender community. So there were two Christian parents, and I think we actually reported on this a little bit early, or toward the beginning of Transistance. They had pulled their 6-year-old son from the Church of England primary school where he attended because there was a gender diverse child in his class. 4 years later, in October, and this is, I think, where we came in and reported, they decided to take legal action against the entire Department of Education for the UK. And basically, they are wanting to, say that they had every right to pull their child from this school. Now, a high court judge has given permission for this to go before judicial review to see if the trans affirming policies are out of line and need to be repealed, because these parents decided that because their 6-year-old child, it's funny how 6 seems to keep coming up in this. Six. It's kind of like a slot machine. We hit 6 one more time, I think we get a special guest appearance. But they were afraid that their 6-year-old child, that these primary children in the Church of England are going to have the trans issue pushed upon them. And this is this point where it seems like when it comes down to faith versus rights, faith is given more permission. So I think it's something that we need to consider.
I mean, that's, it's the opposite. I think we can all agree upon that. I don't know if I brought this up before. I know I brought up Chris Paul Rainbows before, but one of my favorite videos by them, and I've brought it up multiple times on my TikTok, is basically they're like, I have this chicken. This chicken can't fly no matter what it do. It cannot fly. And it's spreading a message that flightless birds and flighted birds are loved and equal. And then here's this parrot who's flighted, and this parrot is spreading a message that only flighted birds are deserving of love. That parrot can change its message, but that chicken can never fly. There's a difference between being born queer and having certain beliefs about religion. One is something you can not have anymore and change, and the other's not. So it's very clear that people's existences and rights for their existences, the queer community, for example, or people's skin color or whatever, should take precedence over religious challenges, but
Mhm.
that's never the case.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
but as far as this article, like reading the stuff that these parents had to say that their child was suffering from was like, my God, they're saying that, first of all, this kid being in school is somehow like a trans child existing and being in school and learning is somehow this big burden upon them. And it's unacceptable. And then they have the nerve to say that having a trans kid in the school was causing their child to be confused and feel unwell. I doubt that's the case. And if it was, it's only the case because you instilled that sort of fear, anxiety, and hatred of the other upon that child.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only place it comes from. It's, we've got the people that are just trying to ban books or any reference or mention of trans people or gay people in schools, and it's just it's an obvious next step for that, but it's just kind of sad to see that they're railing against just a trans person existing in that school. I don't
We
know.
had it last week in Texas with Shelley Luther.
Mm-hmm.
How can I teach if the kids aren't allowed to laugh at the trans student?
Yeah.
All right. Trans people can self-ID in Scottish census, confirms judge in landmark ruling. This is one that's funny because this was sparked off, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeannie, by someone coming at, someone starting a big kerfuffle about this, and the judge actually ruled in the other favor.
Yeah. This is where, I mean, actually, we just had, this is a crossover with the ERHC or whatever the hell they are. Because they were the guy actually referenced this issue and talked about contributing to the discussion in Scotland. This is why Scotland is one of the better places within that region of the world, because they don't fall in line with the UK. So this is basically coming out of a a push to remove transgender women from playing in women's sports. Sounds very familiar. I mean, it's the same thing. The judge, however, said this: in the modern age where social change has meant that such issues are more openly and widely discussed and debated, I would find it impossible to find that the word sex in a statute enabling the general population to be asked questions for the wide and general purposes for which a census is conducted falls to be regarded as restricted in the sense for which the petitioner contends. Rather, I would accept the suggestion that biological sex, sex recognized by law, or self identified or lived sex, as at the date of the census, are all capable of being comprehended within the word. So essentially, a judge says, you know what? We don't need to wait for the world to define sex. People can define sex, whether that is how they were identified, how they are biologically formed, how the law records them, or they just decide to declare, this is who I am and I will live this way.
Yes.
It's a huge win. I love that. It's
It is a
beautiful.
huge win, and I just have to laugh that these transphobes that brought this argument got even less than they had before they started.
Right.
They asked for the census to be only biological sex when it was biological sex or legal sex on a birth certificate or a gender recognition certificate, which we discussed last week are very hard to get. Less than 1% of the UK, I believe, less than 1% of trans people in the UK have one.
Mm-hmm.
So they, so the where the legislation was a little discriminatory, and because they decided to go after trans people, the trans people got even more. And if that's not the best karma I've seen in a long time, I don't know what is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Curly Fry brings up in the chat that they don't actually lose anything. Let's just remember that. And that's the truth in all of this. In all of this stuff that you know, these bills and these bans and things, there isn't any consequence for the people who are against and trying to limit the rights of trans folks or LGBT folks out there, unless there are political ramifications. But a lot of these other groups, these hate groups, these the EHRC and stuff like this, that are just kind of passively, or you know, just taking part in the limiting of trans rights. They don't have anything to lose. It's fine for them. They're just throwing stuff out there and trying to limit our rights. But yes, there is no consequence for them in any of it. Get this to reload here, if it's going to. Hartzler launches transphobic ad targeting transgender college swimwear. Ah, great. What's
Swimmer.
Swimmer. Ah, just need to learn how to read. It's fine, and then we'll be all good.
I mean, if we could get transgender college swimwear, that would be great. I mean, we're all looking for swimwear that flatters us and flattens us. So
I think that's what it was. It was wishful thinking in the read there.
What was the finger for, Marla?
No, I'm just thinking back to the summer and a lot of letdowns. I just want to say, like, if we ever start endorsements on this channel, like, unclockable, you need to get your shit together because that stuff does not work.
Yeah. Okay, back to the wackadoodle poodle in Missouri, my neighbor to the north. Senate candidate, campaigner, Representative Vicky Hartzler has launched an ad directly targeting Leah Thomas, the University of Pennsylvania swim team member. And this is what the brave and self-ordained crusader had to say. Some people are afraid to talk about it. Not me.
How brave.
I ran and coached girls track, and I won't look away while woke liberals destroy women's sports. Women's sports are for women, not men pretending to be women. Yeah, she doesn't have a clue. She is basically bringing out the same tropes, the same rhetoric that is being pushed out and canned through these organizations that are trying to get all of this legislation through. They give talking points. They make talk sheets so that these individuals who are running for office have an issue sheet that they have the right keywords or phrases to be able to capture people's attention, to be able to drag them in through fear and ignorance and not give them any real information to work with. So she's going around and saying that Leah Thomas is not a woman. She is just a man who decided to jump over into women's swimming. And
I just wish people for 5 goddamn seconds would go, would someone really take hormones, alter their body, go through years of hell, be constantly attacked, be in constant fear of being attacked physically, verbally, politically, to compete in a college sport where you don't make any money? Is like what? Just
The
for
answer is yes, because there are they are throwing attention away from these coaches who are now being called out for their sexual misconduct.
mm-hmm.
And if they can throw it onto a transgender woman now presenting a risk in women's athletics, then they will be making the entirety of women's athletics safe for women to compete, because they won't have to worry about a transgender woman competing with them, being in the same changing room with them. Yet, all of the coaches and all of the trainers and all of the assistants and all of these other white, male, cis, heterosexual predators have been abusing and misusing women in women's athletics for decades.
Yeah. I mean, has Jim Jordan opened his mouth yet about these issues, seeing how he protected and lied about a uh, coach that was taking advantage of people physically? Like,
No one is coming out and calling the truth to light. No
yeah,
one is going around and saying it is coaches, it has been trainers, it has been therapists, physical therapists who have, were teen recruited, who are doing these things. The Olympic doctor, for God's sake,
yep.
a doctor, and they're afraid of Leah. It's donkey shit.
Trailblazing trans woman Dors Gamalama buried as a man after family ignored her last wishes. This is something that is all too familiar and all too common here in the community. Jeannie, what's going on in this article?
So Dorse Gamalama is from Indonesia and was an entertainer. And she was diagnosed. She's 58. She was 58 years old. She was diagnosed with COVID. And among other issues, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and diabetes. So there were a lot of factors going into her death. The thing is that even though she had been openly trans for decades, she had undergone gender affirmation surgery back in the 80s, and she won the legal battle to legally have her gender recognized. Her family would not allow her to be buried under her identity because, as a devout Muslim, the decision would lie with the faith leaders. And the Indonesia Ulema Council, the top Islamic scholars body, said that the body of a trans person must always be buried according to their gender assigned at birth. So despite everything that she went through, declaring what her final wishes were, her family and the religious leaders made the decision that her burial, she would be bathed, which is a part of the Muslim rite of burial, bathed and buried as a man.
I think this is the article that made me the most sick. Like, I was just the most disgusted by this. Especially, like, I don't expect great things from, that, like, I don't know. I just expected the family at least to do better, to at least try. And I'm a little horrified that they didn't.
Yeah. So,
Especially given her status and position. You know, this is not, we hear about this a lot with like a lot of trans people who are lesser known and, not as open or visible. But to do this to someone who's open and visible
Right.
is such a smack in the face of like, it doesn't even matter what you do. We're still going to
Yeah.
call you a man.
So I'm introducing a new segment of Transistance this week, and it's called Jeannie's Random Mystery Articles to help lighten the mood.
Oh, it happens in the middle of the show?
It happens whenever I get the fucking feeling to do it.
Oh, okay.
So I want to do this right now. Here's article number 1 of Jeannie's Mystery Positive Articles. So there's an internet church called the Universal Life Church, non-denominational religious organization based on the internet. It allows people of any faith to be ordained so that they can perform weddings and other ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
I've used them. I had a friend use them for our wedding.
The Universal Life Church in California said, if the current trends, according to a recent Gallup poll, hold true, then by 2047, everyone in America will be gay. So,
oh my God, I'm gonna live to see it.
We all have to push to make it to 2047 so that we'll be in the majority at that point.
Oh my God. Did they give a number for how long till everyone's trans?
No, I don't think that was part of their math. That's basically what it's built upon, is that Gallup poll has shown that over the last 10 years, the LGBTQ plus community has doubled in that 10 years. So by their logic, if it continues to double,
yeah,
we're all going to be gay Americans.
Which is wonderful for so many reasons, right? Like if you've ever taken any kind of statistics class or learned about any of this sort of data, it's like, yeah, you can't base anything off of, a very small set. And we've talked about it many times on this show that, back in the day, it was basically banned to be left-handed. You were not allowed to be left-handed. You were derided, and they did everything they could to make you right-handed, because being left-handed, I guess, was a sign of the devil or something. I don't know. And so they stopped all of that crap, and all of a sudden, the reports of people who were left-handed spiked, just went up like crazy, and so everybody kind of freaked out, and it was like, well, I don't know if the people freaked out, but like the numbers just went up drastically and then leveled off to the actual percent, which is about 12% of the population. But there in a short span, there was a huge spike because it was finally okay to say that you were left-handed. Which, I mean, if you think about it, that's just crazy that was even a thing, but it was a thing. It was a very big thing. And so, that's what's happening now. And I think this is why we're seeing so much pushback and so many laws and all this kind of stuff, and book burnings and bans, because people are seeing trans and LGBT people everywhere, and they think that it's just some plague. Right. It's the other pandemic, and they're just terrified that we're going to take over, and it's like everybody's going to become gay. And so it's really disappointing to see someone publicly, I don't know what kind of pull the Universal Life Church might have, but for them to come out and to say this, which is just, gasoline for some of the fires that a lot of these people who are going to use for these, book bannings and this thought of this myth of indoctrination into LGBT. Right.
Well, and for me, it's just a matter of, if you don't know how to do math, don't do it publicly. I mean, yeah, it was a Gallup poll. Gallup polls are not, spot on all the time. But at the same time, if you're going to do math and you do not know how to do math, Do not do it so that the entire world sees how fucking stupid you are.
Unfortunately, half of the world will see the numbers, and if the numbers agree with their perspective and their desires, they'll believe them no matter what.
Right, again. But if you don't know how to do math, don't do it in public.
Well, the math is right. You know, in a certain period, because of the ability finally for people to come out and feel comfortable coming out, the numbers are going up. And it's just the number, the public numbers. I mean, so many people weren't allowed to get married before, despite the fact that they wanted to. So it's not like we're becoming a more gay nation. It's just we've always been here. It's just now we can finally come out and be ourselves publicly. But that's not the way they're going to see it.
The same is true for the number of atheists and believing people. The number of atheists have been increasing in this country over the last about 2 decades. It's not because there's more atheists. It's because more atheists are finally looking at the church and saying, fuck you, dude. I'm out of here. I didn't believe in your shit to begin with, so now I don't believe it publicly. Mm-hmm. That's where the rise of atheism is coming from. It's not coming from the internet. It's not coming from the leftist agenda. It's coming from the fact that people have not been true believers, and now they're just finally feeling comfortable enough to say, I'm done with this stuff.
And then what about, let's not even, let's we talk about the pedophilia like scourge that went rampant through the Catholic Church, and all of the things that have gone with that, with priests molesting people, and not only that, I mean, that's horrible, but then the multi-layered cover-ups and the sweeping under the rug, just moving a priest from one place to another, just the horrible handling. They've done a lot of their own bad press.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if you saw it. I know you did, Jeannie, because we were talking about it, but they'll go through the hell of pushing out a priest who was using the wrong pronoun that ended up, which is ridiculous that would make you not Catholic because he used the wrong pronoun.
Yeah.
They'll go through the hell of pushing him out for that very tiny mistake. But the pedophiles and the abusers, that's who they'll cover up and be like, oh god.
Is that something we talked about on here? What that was?
No, Jeannie and I made a TikTok about it because it's not really trans related. I made it trans related.
Okay.
Basically,
as did other trans content creators on TikTok.
There was this priest in Arizona who, instead of saying I baptize you, he kept saying we baptize you, like as in the whole community, for like 25 years. And apparently, according to the Catholic Church, that means none of those baptisms are real. None of those people are actually Catholic. And I guess they're all going to burn in hell if they're not already. Yep. And in addition to that, a bunch of other priests who heard about this went back and looked at old videos of their baptisms and were like, fuck, I wasn't actually baptized. So now, it's this whole ridiculous thing. So I said something, and other people said something along the lines of, first time the Catholic Church has ever cared about getting pronouns right.
Oh, that's a good joke. I love it. But yeah, I think, again, those are the things that kind of make people grow a little weary of organized religion, when it's just like the weird rules, the hypocrisies, and then just the outright terrible things that go on, and they're like, oh no, it's the internet, it's the internet's fault. Oh, people are great.
Oh yeah.
Did you have another article to distract, or are we going back into
not at this moment.
Okay. We'll wait until it gets.
If I do them back to back.
Yeah. We'll have to wait until it gets dour again, and then we'll kick it back up. I get it. I see. politics to blame for South Dakota's nation-leading depression among LGBTQ people, experts say. A logical sort of backlash to the pressure against, LGBT people with these laws. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this, Jeannie.
So the statistics have all been pointing to a drastic or at least noticeable increase in the amount of depression rates among LGBTQ people, especially when we're looking at young people. We see increased suicidal ideation. We see more reaching out for help. And the study that was done said that nearly 90% of people in Sioux Falls reported feelings of depression at least once a week. And although, the numbers can't always be, figured out, we can definitely say that with the bathroom bills, with the women in sports bills, with the transgender affirming care bills and the medical ethics rights bills and the faith protection bills that basically allow for that prohibit discrimination against people of faith for holding their beliefs. All of these things are gaining more and more and more attention and pushing for the this radical pushing out of transgender people. So depression is naturally going to rise.
I mean, I read the article and title and I went, duh. Like, it's the same shit. I mean, it's very similar when people bring up, oh God, I hate to say the fucking number, but 41%. And it's like, yeah, if you push a bunch of people to the brink and tell them that they're worthless and unnatural and sinful and all this, and deny them basic human rights, of course depression is going to go up, and of course suicide rates are going to go up. There's a reason those numbers drop dramatically when those people are supported or given access to the proper medical care.
Right.
And they'll keep throwing that number out there as if we're like mentally ill in that way, and that we're all like hate ourselves and hate being trans, and being trans is just like we're just some deranged or whatever the fuck they want to fucking say about us.
Right.
And in the truth, it's them. They're the ones who are causing it. They are victim blaming, and it's horrifying.
Okay, Jeannie's random mystery positive picture number 2 is actually a follow-up to what we just covered. Governor Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, who just put her signature on a bill that keeps transgender girls from playing sports, has this to say. Given the statistics that were just released saying that there was a massive increase in depression in the state of South Dakota, of which she is the governor, Kristi Noem, who just signed the first anti-trans bill of 2022 into law, is asked why she thinks 90% of LGBTQ plus youth in South Dakota are diagnosed with anxiety or depression. Her response is,
oh, no.
I don't know. That makes me sad, and we should figure it out.
No.
We've lost Marla now. We've lost her entirely.
Was this one supposed to make me happy? I mean, it made me laugh, but my God.
And it followed right on what you were saying, though. It's like, it's not that they're victim blaming. It's that they have no cognitive ability to put cause and effect together. So, we have a person who is a governor of a state who is single-handedly responsible. Now, let's put this in the wider context, okay? Kristi Noem actually refused to sign a similar bill last year. She stood in the way of this bill being passed last year. Then she turned around at the beginning of this year, authored her own version of the bill, sent it to the legislature, and they passed it all the way up to her. And now she's going to sit up there and say, I don't know why LGBTQ plus kids would be anxious or depressed. But you know what? I bet we could get a panel together and figure this out.
Is anybody? I mean, are any of us surprised to hear that someone that is doing this stuff just doesn't even understand consequence for their actions at all? Like, is that a shock?
No.
I mean, it seems like we've been talking about that a lot.
Human Rights Campaign.
Don't you know?
Human Rights Campaign came out and called it as they saw it. They wrote in a tweet, "You not only signed an anti-trans bill into law, but you also authored it yourself. If you're looking for a reason why, look in the mirror."
Not only a reason why, but a person to blame, a person to tar and feather and run out on a rail. Like if you want to solve the problem, it's really easy. You just tender a nice little letter and hand it in to the people and walk away from your desk.
Another person authored this tweet: "Dear Kristi Noem, hi, queer trans person here, South Dakota born and raised. I live with anxiety and depression, and it's been immensely better now that I moved out of South Dakota and live in a state that doesn't waste tax dollars attacking my community. Learn to care. Hatefully, D."
I think we could probably, for a lot of these people, just stop that last statement, that last sentence, with just learn. We could solve so much if they would just learn anything.
Yeah. I know. So no, it was not positive in the sense of being good news, but it's always nice to see stupid on display.
Yeah.
Transistance, shining a spotlight on stupid since 2022. All right. So I think this is going to be a little bit more positive. Let's see. 2 Foxborough students charged in assault on transgender North Attleboro student. Yeah.
You want me to take it there, Em? Because you kind of seem to have lost the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I got it. It is a North Attleboro student. High school is another piece of information that would have been nice to have in there, but we got it. You can go ahead and take it now, Jeannie.
So, to summarize, actually last week we reported on a transgender student who had gotten into a verbal altercation during a basketball game at North Attleboro High School. And the altercation spilled over into the parking lot after the game, or at some point after, where 2 other students attacked the transgender student. Now, 2 Foxborough High School students have been identified and arrested and charged with assaulting the transgender student. And one of the individuals was 18. The other is a juvenile. So that information is not publicly accessible. But the 18-year-old was arraigned and released with no bail, but he was ordered to wear a GPS bracelet. So, I mean, it is good news that we do have follow-up on that story that we reported. Luckily, the individual, the transgender person, the young person, was not injured in a very severe way, but it was definitely disheartening. It was definitely a a demoralizing attack, and we do have some justice that's being brought to bear on that.
That's great to hear that so quickly after we did that article, not even a week later, they've got this resolution where they've actually got 2 of the people caught. Now, I believe in the original article, it was a group of people, and and some of them were filming what was going on. I really hope that footage comes out.
Yeah. I do too.
BBC's transphobic reporting called out in major international human rights review. Ooh, this sounds fun. What's going on here?
So the BBC has been taking a lot of hits on the chin ever since they did not properly vet an article, which essentially called transgender women rapists in a very general sense. And the BBC has been attacked by a number of different organizations as saying, this is not acceptable. You have to have better reporting. And the BBC has backed that article up. They tried to backpedal away from it, but they still eventually just said, we still support what was published. And because we've seen an increase in anti-trans rhetoric, anti-trans legal maneuvering, and violence in the UK, the BBC is sort of showing a little bit of bias on the side of anti-trans news information. So the ILGA in Europe basically said that the BBC is running 1 or more anti-trans articles every day, and that LGBT plus employees have quit their jobs because of the anti-trans and transphobic reporting that the BBC has been doing over the last year. So there is this scrutiny being done by the BBC, which is the center of media for the UK. And to have one of Europe's organizations call them out and say, look, this is an anti-trans organization, that's a huge black eye on a very prominent media company in that part of the world.
I wish some major shows would threaten to walk.
Right.
I mean, am I correct in saying that Great British left the BBC? Isn't that why Mary Berry left? Because she felt tied to the BBC? I mean, if Doctor Who was like, maybe not. Like, I don't know. I just feel like if a few shows were like, we're leaving if you continue to be the shitty organization.
Well, and with Doctor Who specifically, I mean, we have Russell Davies coming back as showrunner, and here you have an out gay man running the show, Doctor Who, which is just now ending its first era of a female doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
making the doctor trans. Let's point that out. The doctor can change genders, to change forms, bodies each time. So
I'm not going to get into a nerd fight with you, Emily. Because
also, I would like to bring up that there was a special. I think it was like a little mini special where the doctor was a woman before. It was a 1 episode. I just want to bring it up.
Look, here's the deal. If y'all want to go toe-to-toe with me on nerd stuff, bring it, okay? And we will turn the Transistance into a whole new level of chaos.
I have a rumbling warbird back here, as you pointed out earlier. I'm ready to go.
But
we got plenty of nerd stuff at hand.
But we have probably the most recognized BBC property, which has been increasingly LGBTQ visible, which is now going to be resumed as, being head by an out gay man, and nothing is being said out of that production staff that we know of. So, in my opinion, there needs to be some questioning of the actual production staff. There needs to be somebody saying, look, BBC, yes, we're talking about the news arm, but the BBC is a solitary, solid unit company. And so, yeah, I think we should be seeing something from the production staff of Doctor Who saying this is unacceptable.
I would love that.
Well, I've got a perspective on the BBC because, as an American, my only connection to what's going on in British culture, like as far as news and stuff like that, is through BBC. I'm a big NPR fan, and they're constantly piping in BBC stuff. So it's from a monopolistic standpoint, it's my only contact to what's going on in the UK. I'm assuming that over there they have many other options, and it's not as much of a monopoly, but right. It still seems like this is one of those things where it's just too big of a company, and the good key shows that are there don't have solid other options.
Well, first of all, it's not a monopoly. It is the equivalent of public broadcasting. It is government controlled. So it's not actually a private company. It's actually overseen by the British government.
That's even worse.
NPR or PBS. Now, there are other alternatives, but none of them can compete with the backed BBC.
Interesting. Okay. Moving on. Oh, we got to the story that I brought back up. We had this in the queue for last week. I can talk a little bit about it, and then Jeannie, since it's more your realm, we'll have you dive into it.
Take off.
She says her school kicked her out for being trans. She wants the rules to change. This is an article about Title IX, and someone that we will get to know fairly well pretty soon here on the Transverse, Kaylee Hargrove. Jeannie, why don't you take it away and talk about what is going on in this article.
All right, so as of right now, religious schools do have exemption when it comes to setting standards for LGBTQ exclusion based upon religious observation or observance. So there is a class action lawsuit that is being built right now that will push back against religious schools and try to get the rules that exempt them from, or give them the exemption to discriminate, try to get that removed. Kaylee Hargrove specifically has been a part of Lincoln Christian University in Illinois. She started her transition in 2020. She was a distance learner. She didn't volunteer her gender identity up front, but she didn't hide it either. So when she wrote an essay for an online publication, the school officials didn't find out about it till 2 months later. And they told her, withdraw from classes or face disciplinary action, because publicly identifying as a trans individual violated the school's student code of conduct. So what we're looking at is Title IX supposed to remove any discrimination based upon multiple categories of identity, whether it's race, ethnicity, religion, sex, gender, disability. It's supposed to release, it's supposed to prevent discrimination in any of those forms. But again, those religious institutions that are identified as having prohibition against LGBTQ lifestyle, they get a get out of jail free card because it is a part of their practice. Because the rule on this is really, really, really vague and indiscriminate. And I wish somebody would rip this rule apart and clarify this, because what it says when we talk about religious exemption is that which a religious institution is allowed to discriminate on is based upon central ideas of their faith, not on ancillary concepts related to the faith.
Or any kind of, larger standards, which is what Title IX is about. It is about setting standards for discrimination and the prohibition of.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's where this push is like, look, you can't go through and say you are going to discriminate against an entire class of people just because you put it in your school code of conduct. Being a transgender person is not an issue of conduct. It is an issue of identity.
And there was a question in chat from Curly Fry. Are those schools getting any federal funding? And that's the whole thing. That's why Title IX exists, is because yes, they are receiving federal funding, and because they are schools, and this they're able to write in and get this exemption to essentially to discriminate because it violates some of their beliefs. It's that whole thing of like, if you force this on us, it violates our beliefs. It violates our rights. So it's this kind of weird push and pull, where these schools are able to basically discriminate whoever they want. And it's sort of, I think it's gone along because it's sort of within reason, and I think it's because it's the general consensus of who should be banned, or like, yeah, those are fringe, whatever. But we're starting to see where there's a lot of pushback to that, of people calling it for what it is and saying, no, you should not be able to receive funding, if you're going to discriminate, and you should not be able to find these loopholes and find these ways of doing this and still receive all the benefits.
Marley, you want to jump in there?
No. I don't know. I keep saying it over and over again. The fact that we put religious faith and beliefs over people's existence and how they were born, I will never understand how people think it's the same thing.
So Jeannie's third random
mystery. But wait, before you go on, I did tease a little something early on in that, and I want to hit that before we move on. You all will get to know more about Kaylee Hargrove very soon. She will be a guest on the Transgender Show on March 8th. So not this week, not the next week, but the one after. She will be on, and we'll get to dive into all of this fun stuff. So we'll get some really good follow-up on this article. Jeannie, now take us on a major tangent.
Okay. The world's first half male, half female, dual gender stick insect has been discovered, and their name is Charlie. The London Natural History Museum has confirmed that the first dual sex stick insect has been discovered. Charlie is a green bean stick insect, or the Diapherodes gigantea, who belongs to...
Well done.
Huh?
Well done.
Thank you.
On the name. No.
Who belongs to stick insect breeder Lauren Garfield, who lives in Waldringfield, Suffolk. Garfield shared photos of Charlie on her Facebook page and said that she had accidentally bred a gynandromorphic stick insect. Gynandromorphic. A gynandromorph is a creature, usually an insect or a bird, that is both male and female at the same time. The two sexes of the animal are often split down their midline.
What?
In Charlie's case, one half of their body is a bright apple green female, while the other half has the brown wings of a male.
Wow. I love nature. Whoa. I'm just, because I'm hesitant to use the word because people use it incorrectly and use it for humans, but the H slur, we all know what we're talking about, is applicable only to non-mammals and non-birds. And I was like, isn't that where this is going? But it's something completely different. It's so cool.
By H-slur, you mean people who have both
yes.
both reproductive organs?
Yes, because if anyone's curious, there are no mammals or birds with that can be described that way, because it has to be two sets of fully functioning sexual organs.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not exist in birds or mammals. And that is a slur if you use it against a human.
Oh, I did not know that. I had heard that it most likely wasn't medically possible to have two fully formed and functional sets of sex organs in opposition to each other, essentially. But I just remember a time where there was a bit of a cultural fascination with that idea.
Yeah.
Now,
this is completely different. Wow. I want to make a whole video about it now.
So here's the dark turn.
Oh, come the fuck on.
Oh no, is Jeannie's random like happy articles, are these all gonna have like a dark turn to them? I think we're 2 for 2 now, or 2 for 3.
Green bean stick insects live only for about a year.
Okay.
And Charlie is a full-grown adult. So Charlie doesn't have much longer to be our mascot, as Danny has asked for.
But if we do make Charlie the Transverse mascot, they will live on eternally.
Where's the butt? Oh God, damn it.
Poor Marla. This segment's going to be really hard on Marla, I feel. I'm sensing a pattern here.
Charlie is going to be euthanized for research.
Rip Charlie.
Because the insects shrivel rapidly after natural death.
Oh. Does she know how to replicate this again?
Well, the article makes it sound like it was a mistake.
I'm going with candles and a bottle of Chianti. Emily's just looking at me like this was such a mistake to bring Jeannie in on this.
I learned long ago never to give. Go ahead.
Is this technically a form of chimerism?
No, it's not. Not that I'm aware of.
Because I'm thinking of like tortoiseshell cats, where it's basically two
right.
embryos, and that's why they're split down the middle.
No, what it says is that gynandromorph, including Charlie, the genitalia are not properly formed. So although male-like, it would not be able to mate properly with a female.
Could you imagine it split down the middle? How could it be?
Oh God.
So it's an intersex insect.
Yeah, well, yes, but
which again, now the pun's just coming. It's an intersect.
Bottom surgery. This is what I got.
Okay, what pops into my brain is, what leaf do you want to eat on? I don't know. What leaf do you want to eat on? I don't know. What leaf do you want to eat on?
And see, here I am just trying to think of fun puns like this is the world's first intersect.
I mean, there are definitely intersex bugs, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
You tried, Emily. It's so sweet.
Should we kind of try and get back on the rails, or just leave it off for the rest of the show?
No, maybe I'll do some juggling. We'll have like a comedy hour.
Yeah, we're gonna pull out all the nerd toys now, then, and just do a show and tell with all of that, and then now it's time for the Doctor Who discussion to get really heated, I guess, and. Y'all, see, I knew it in my bones. Just it's a bad idea to just hand the reins over to Jeannie, and
and this will be the final episode where Jeannie's random mystery positivity articles will be included. It was loved while it lasted.
Random positivity. All of these are dark. What are you talking about? Positivity. You don't consider it a positive Disney movie if at the end everybody's dead. Come on. All right.
Okay, carry on.
Drag Race star Jasmine Kennedy bravely comes out as trans. I couldn't be happier, they say. What's going on here, Jeannie? It sounds positive.
I have no clue. What's going on here, Marla?
Oh, good. Fantastic. So I'm trying to pull up the other article because it has this one has a sister article. Oh, here we go. So season 14 of Drag Race, right? Started with 2 trans women contenders. Now, there's a lot of yelling and screaming and whoop-de-doo about the fact that they had put this cis-het man in the cast, Maddie, when, the transgender contestants got so little attention in the past and hadn't been allowed on before and were ignored, and they still ignore all sorts of AFAB queer people and so on and so forth. But now, despite starting the season with 2 transgender contestants, within the past 2 weeks, we now have 4 transgender contestants. We have doubled. Jasmine Kennedy came out this week, and Bosco, does Bosco have a last name? Bosco came out about a week ago. So, yeah, I mean, I'd hate to say it, but you put a bunch of eggs in a room, they're bound to crack. That's just the way it works, right?
No, this is great. Yeah, and it's going to do some interesting things, because we've talked about how the trans community can view typically the drag community as a bit problematic because it is performance, it's exaggeration, and it's something that at the end of the day, the folks who are participating take off. It's a lark. It's something they do for performance, and then it's off. And yet that's a lot of people's perception or understanding when you talk about being trans. Oh, so you like doing drag, or that sort of thing. So you're
It confuses the sissies.
Hmm?
It confuses the sissies. They don't get the difference.
Yes. And so like I said, some people view it as problematic, and it's interesting to see so many, like you said, that are just eggs that are cracking now and understanding that they are trans. This is great.
So I'm curious, can we bring this back around to the news item that was a little bit earlier with the Universal Life Church and say this is where they did their study? Since the numbers doubled. Or is this just confirmation?
Confirmation, or is it confirmation bias?
Right, exactly. I mean, the number of transgender people doubled on that. So
clearly in a couple of years, all of the contestants will be trans.
Yeah, and
by the end of the season, all the contestants are going to be trans.
Right? Yeah.
At this rate.
And then all of TV will be trans.
Right.
Well, that's great. That's great for her. I'm so happy that that she was able to come out, and it's great that it's great anytime we can get somebody who's coming out very publicly and who is brave enough to do that. And I think it helps our community.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a secondary article on this that we need to dive into?
Yeah, that was just the other person. There's two different articles because it happened in 2 different weeks. We didn't cover it last week though.
Okay. Did you want to dive into this one at all?
No. It's literally, I mean, it was included. They're like sister articles.
All right, let's jump into playing with fire here then. Margaret Atwood on feminism, culture wars, and speaking her mind. I'm very willing to listen, but not to be scammed. What's going on here, Jeannie? Or Marla?
Yeah, Marla.
Is this me?
I didn't have time to get into this one.
Yeah. The article that's there is the whole article. I'm going to be mostly referencing the next article, which is someone's take on it. So a Guardian journalist interviewed Margaret Atwood, who wrote A Handmaid's Tale, and was basically trying to push her into saying transphobic shit, and Margaret was having none of it. Because Margaret had said some things in the past, saying that basically like the world's diverse, and it's not just man and woman, and there's lots of diversity, and that's great. And this person was very upset about that. So just some things that Margaret had to say that I thought were really important. First off, the person was like talking about gender critical people, and Margaret was like, what exactly is a gender critical person? Like, just to kind of like really like get them to show their hand. Of course, that person was like, someone who believes that all living creatures are either male or female, and that rare chromosomal variations don't disprove that. I had this argument literally yesterday or today with someone who was like, and don't bring up intersex people. I was like, that's a really great argument that you made, that you can't use facts to like, I can't use facts to disprove you.
It's really unfair to use proof that your side is correct and mine is incorrect. That is off the table. No.
So let's see, what else did Margaret have to say? Oh, I mean, she's very good about saying a lot of questions. She was like, I'm not informed enough. I'm not going to respond to you on that. I know what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to make me say something transphobic. But she did bring up, she said, it's so weird that there doesn't seem to be much fuss about trans men. Why is that? Which is something that we bring up on here constantly,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there such a focus on trans women? And the person was like, well, it's the biological males that can harm women, and she was like, can't the trans men also harm women?
Mhm.
Of course, that person had no response, and finally, the person ended this whole charade, the journalist, and I thought this was really um, funny. Um, when Margaret had used the term turf, the person was very upset that she would dare use this sweeping term of turf while at the same time saying that it's dangerous to generalize people, as if as if generalizing people's existence and lives is somehow the same thing as generalizing a bunch of people who are hateful and want people to not live and exist. Like, generalize turfs as much as you want, as far as I'm fucking concerned. I don't know what kind of argument you thought you were making by saying this. Was not a good argument.
Well,
Um,
I mean, don't go around generalizing and then tell somebody you're interviewing, don't generalize.
yeah,
I mean, that that eliminates all of your credibility as a journalist, as a professional, and as a thinking human being.
none of the stuff this journalist was asking made them seem like a professional at all. They
Right.
weren't there to talk about transgender issues. This Guardian journalist just decided to make this about trying to get Margaret Atwood to say something transphobic.
Right.
She should have gotten up and left, but I mean, she just kept telling him the subject's closed.
Well, she's also over 80. It's not like she could run away.
She
I
looks
mean,
good
I
though.
don't want to be ageist, but you know, typically,
Yeah.
I mean, this person probably writes for a blog, so they're a millennial or something like that. So they probably do have a leg on her.
So moving along, I just saw something in chat that's a follow-up to an article we just covered today, that there is a petition on change.org to save Charlie the stick insect.
I don't usually do change.org, but I might make an exception here.
So the entire mod staff of the Transverse will be going over to change.org, signing the petition to save Charlie, the dual sex green bean stick insect.
Charlie the intersect. I'm going to make
The
it stick. I'm going to make it work.
The interstick. There we go.
Okay. Hundreds of top swimmers rally behind Leah Thomas. Do not let politics hurt athletes. I'm assuming this is sports. This is one that I get to jump in and cover, having not had a chance to read the article. So,
Oh, good. Great.
Well, here, you read that. I'm going to insert yet another Jeannie's random positive article.
okay, everybody, like, just
How
buckle your
many
seatbelt and
insects
get
die
ready.
on
Here
this
we go.
one?
Get ready for a roller coaster ride on Jeannie's positivity.
So, Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado has created her own new gender identity.
Let me guess. Don't even say it. I want to come up with a pun. Is it gun related? Is it a gun related identity?
Ooh.
Hmm. I don't know. Tell me.
So, as Lauren Boebert is one who does not like to support our current president, Nor does she in any way want to affirm the wider transgender universe of identities. She has now begun to identify as a non-binary.
The pun's not bad, but my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know conservatives could do puns.
Because it takes intelligence, right? That's why, because it
Yeah.
takes intelligence.
Oh.
So, yeah, Lauren
God.
Boebert is now non-binary.
Well, if that's the case, oh my God, if I worked in Congress, I would be like, if she went to the restroom, I'd be like, what do you think you're doing? You can't use that restroom. Doesn't match your gender.
Look, I tell people, it's like, hey, you can identify as anything you want to identify as. Are you willing to accept the consequences of that? So, yeah, if she wants her gender identity to be non-binary, good luck trying to find a restroom in the United States Capitol.
Oh, if I was I can't think of the congresswoman with the transgender child, the one across from Marjorie Taylor Greene. I would have one of her aides literally just follow Lauren around and denying her bathroom usage. I would hire a special aide just to do that.
So, Strike 10, I just want to let you know that an M16A4 is not a machine gun. So, sorry, nice try. You've kind of fallen down on that one.
Well, and then that brings up the question too, that what would your pronouns be as a gun?
Non-binary.
As a gun?
Oh, as a gun?
I identify as a M16A4 Vietnam used machine gun. Which of course doesn't make any sense, but that's fine. People are allowed to be crazy. It's okay.
My pronouns are pew and pew pew.
Kari says pronouns are boom and bang.
You're on the same track.
Boom, bang, pew, and pew, pew.
Danny says, I want to be non-transphobicary. Anyways, that was brought on because you said that people can identify as anything they want, and people have been making that argument, and they say
Again,
weird things.
Identify as anything you want, but are you willing to accept the consequences? How many consequences have we, the three of us, paid for our identity?
No, and I'm doing just fine. Nothing wrong has ever happened. It's great.
I'm
Everyone
glad you're the exception.
respects me now. I can literally go anywhere I want without fear. How wonderful.
Yeah. I'm willing to accept all of the consequences that come with my identity.
Well, the difference is we have to accept the consequences because we have to live as ourselves. Otherwise, we can't live. It's not possible for us to live a complete lie of who we are. So we have to live as our true selves, and doing so puts us in danger and brings out a bunch of loss and a bunch of crap that we have to deal with. It's not a choice. It's not as easy as saying, "Oh, I identify as this." It's like I am this, and this is how you address me. That's what we say that's what we mean when we're saying I identify as this. This is my identity, who I really am at my core. So yes, if you identify as something as your true core, and that's how you live, and you do deal with those consequences and put up with all of it, then yeah, welcome to the family. But don't just come out and say, "Oh, I identify as this" or whatever, just to invalidate other people who actually are something and are actually living it and dealing with all of those consequences.
Can you believe people are still using attack helicopter jokes? Like, so schlocky.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, hey, whenever they, if they say, hey, I identify as attack helicopter, I'm like, great. How do you handle up to 50 caliber rounds?
I would think
20
mealtime would be a little problematic when you're guzzling aircraft fuel.
Yeah. I mean, what's your rate of climb? Maximum ceiling? Just saying, if you can't accept the responsibility for what you identify as, then better get ready for it because you're going to pay it anyway.
Okay, so we're ready to dive into the swimming article. That pun was completely unintended, but I am absolutely proud of it and sticking by it. So what has happened here is the 332 current and former NCAA Team USA international swimmers and divers said that they support and welcome trans and non-binary athletes in our sport. So they've put forth this letter to the National Collegiate Athletic Association. And here's some of the things they say, and they bring up some really amazing points. There are very real documented threats to women's swimming, including, but not limited to, rampant sexual abuse and an inequitable number of women's coaches within USA Swimming. So, it's predominantly male coaches in women's swimming. The NCAA also faces its own deep and historical challenges with gender equity, as outlined in the detailed report released last year, focused on the stark differences between NCAA D1 men's and women's basketball. We can and should address these challenges. Transgender women are not and have never been a part of these challenges to women's swimming, and sidelining them from sport does not protect women athletes. I just think those are some really, really key and well-articulated points.
I mean, it's exactly what we said earlier, that the actual threats are coaches and doctors and so on. I hate to paint Leah's competitors as petty, but it's the current no, you're gonna stop me. Oh, okay.
I got to duck out.
Gotcha.
Get ready for behind open doors.
See ya.
So, see y'all in a
I
bit.
don't want
Bye,
to
Jeannie.
paint her competitors as petty, but it is very telling that the people who support her are the actual long-time professionals and not college athletes. I think people always forget that this is college level. And yes, there are a lot of college athletes who are like Olympic ready, but that cannot be said of all of them.
That and yeah, I mean, the key point they're bringing here is that the sport is effed up, and you've made no efforts to fix what's wrong in the sport. And yet now all of a sudden, because it's a hot political issue, you're focusing on trans people who have never been part of the discussion of the issues in the sport. And it's just because one person
look over here. Look over here. Look over here.
Yeah. And it's just again highlighting the hypocrisy of saying, oh, we have to protect women's sports. That's never been your priority. That's never been your interest. And when you look at the way that women are treated differently, that women are paid less in paid sports or in places where there is opportunity to pay the women, they're paid significantly less than the men. It's looked down on. It's not televised as much. All of that stuff. And so it's like it's never been treated equally. So it's just this it's a
Look
random
at the U.S. women's soccer team, right?
Yeah.
Like the men are losing left and right, and here's them kicking ass all the time, and they make less money and they get less respect, and it's insane.
And then, the big thing we go back to is that it is the cis men that control the system and keep themselves in power in the system that are more often and more likely to be the ones who are sexually molesting and treating, sexually harassing the women in the sport, and particularly the children. There, we've heard it all too many times, and it's. I think part of it's sort of like bullying, typical bullying, pointing the blame at somebody else. Like, don't focus on us anymore. Start focusing on someone else as the real problem, because then it takes the heat off of them.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, it's no surprise how many cis men all of a sudden care about women's sports.
right? Yeah, all of a sudden it's a big issue for them. It's something that they want to fight strongly for. And I think we talked about it before, how the rules they're putting in place, the laws they're trying to enact and things like that, and the new guidelines that they're trying to put in place essentially make it almost impossible for a trans person to compete in college sports in a meaningful way, because you're not allowed to start on in many states HRT until you're 18, which is when you go to college, and then you're not allowed to start participating in in the sports that I guess get to that kind of competitive level until you've been on until you've exhibited the mandated testosterone levels for 3 consecutive years. So yeah, it's what they're working on between these couple different things is an all-out ban on trans folks. Yeah. And it's just great, again, like you said, to see the sport, a major portion of the sport, come forward and say that no, this isn't the problem with the sport. There are so many other things that you need to address. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's see if this one
unfortunately will still, despite the fact that 322 professional athletes in the sport support her, we will still see every single day 16 team members write letter against Leah Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very sad. I think that's was that the last article we had on here? Oh, yeah. There was one more on it. Let's see. I didn't get a chance to dive into that one either. I got to quit using that word because it just seems like I'm running this pun into the ground. So in this one, trans swimmer breaks pool record during win at Ivy League championship. So Leah Thomas sparked a nationwide conversation about fairness in women's sports after she repeatedly dominated meets, is now an Ivy League champion in women's swimming after winning the 500-yard freestyle event with a time of 4:37.32. Her time is the fastest ever recorded at Harvard University's Blodgett Pool. Let's see what one of the tweets here that Penn Swimming put out. Leah Thomas is the Ivy League champion in the 500 free with her time. And Catherine Baroker finishes second. So,
I mean, I can already tell you what's going to happen here. She, got the pool record, right? This is not an overall college record. This is not, or an NCAA record or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a singular pool record. And undoubtedly, within a month, I'll be hearing about how Leah Thomas broke the world record for
by minutes, right?
Yeah.
Because of her unfair advantage. Thomas was able to compete at the Ivy League championships despite recent changes to the USA Swimming policy on transgender athletes' eligibility, but she was until recently possibly in but she was until recently. Yeah, she was eligible until recently. So they just changed the rule on her. Possibly ineligible to compete in the NCAA championships in March, which she qualified for during a win this season at a meet. So I mean, we've talked about it a lot. Apparently, there's still a lot that's going to happen before we hear the end of this.
Yeah.
So the NCAA has reportedly cleared the way for Thomas to compete in the championships, saying it would be unfair for transgender athletes if it implemented new rules in the middle of a season, which that's totally true. Yeah. You want to make some tweaks or whatever, do it in the off season. Absolutely. It's still unfair, but that's the more fair way to be unfair. Thomas had been in compliance with the transgender athlete policy, but there were concerns she would not be in compliance with possible new policies taken into effect. After taking testosterone suppressants for over a year, Thomas was allowed to compete as a woman under the current trans athlete inclusion policies, which is confusing to me because I had read that maybe we're talking about different policies. Maybe the NCAA's is different than the other one we were talking about, but I believe it had said that it was maintain the testosterone levels required for 2 years, and now they're trying to change them to 3. So if she was on testosterone suppressants for over a year, I don't know how that would have qualified
I think
for
it
that
might have
tournament.
had something to do with like when she took it and when the season started, and they were like, "Well, you'll have hit 2 years like in the season," so I think it might have been like a good enough sort of
Yeah.
thing. But
Kari says, "Woot! World record proves how great she is," with a tongue sticking out, of course.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have, and that's all we had in there. Is there anything else that we needed to follow up on or talk more deeply about, Marla?
I don't think so. I could sit here and just call conservatives hypocrites and so on and so forth for 10 minutes if you really want.
Well, but considering we've done it for almost 2 hours already, yeah. But I just keep going back. I mean, my brain is really stuck on that article that so many people in the sport of swimming have come out and wrote this article. Like it's so great to see representation in sport now and see trans people coming up. It's frankly kind of refreshing to see this being an issue because it means there are visible trans people. Like that's good.
Yeah.
Here at the Transverse, we're all about visibility for trans folks. It's even more important to see the support of the cis community when a bunch of people who would or currently are competing against Leah come out in support of her. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I mean God, it almost says a lot that it was the support on the women's side, was it a mix of men and women?
I am making an assumption. I didn't see 322 current and former NCAA Team USA and international swimmers and divers. So it's a mix of different water sports, and so I'm assuming that yes, it's probably a mix of genders.
Okay. Because I mean, I'm just thinking like, I don't know. The only professional swimmer who I've seen say anything against her is Michael Phelps, who has no business speaking about unfair advantages.
Yes. I loved being able to cover that and just show all the different ways that he is genetically unfairly advantaged. And his trans ex-girlfriend was the one to point that out. It's like, I love everything about this story. All right. So Marla, thank you so much for a great show. We'll go ahead and end it here. I'll show a couple the end slides, and we'll just run them a little long, and then pass it over to Jeannie when she's ready to start up her starting scenes. So thank you all so much for coming, for your comments. I don't think well, we did see some questions. We did get to address those. Always love your support and you being here and being part of this. It's awesome. Thank you so much for the hype train. We got some people chipping in some money and enough to trigger. I don't know if you even know what a hype train is, Marla, but it's a very good and fun thing for us.
I've been doing this for like, what, 3 months now? I still have no idea what it is. I'm
Yes,
literally doing a Twitch charity stream in 2 weeks. I don't know what a hype train is.
let's promote that real quick. We've got some time for that. What charity stream
great.
Is it?
So March 5th from noon until noon the next day on March 6th, there will be a 24-hour stream run by Nonstop Colpop. I'm sure you all know Nonstop Colpop. She's like one of the most popular trans creators on TikTok.
Yeah, she's amazing. I've had her on the show.
Oh yeah, she's on like the week before I came on or something like that,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Small world.
So it's for her 1-year HRT anniversary. All of the proceeds go to Planned Parenthood. So there'll be games and incentives and with all like your favorite trans TikTok creators on there. So if you could show up, that would be great. If you could promote it, that would be great.
You said that's March 5th?
March 5th at noon Eastern time. If you could donate, that would be even more great. My HRT anniversary is the day before that. So if anyone was thinking of getting me a present, show up to this and donate to Planned Parenthood through the charity stream.
Okay, well, I was, I know that Romulan Warbird over your shoulder is actually your dad's. I was hoping to buy one for you for your birthday so you could have your own at home, but maybe I'll switch over to donating on the stream.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to show it, that'll be great. It'll really be a fun time. There's some fun games already set up. There's an all cat girls themed D&D going on. There's a Call of Cthulhu. There's going to be a ton of puns. There's going to be Among Us and Jackbox, and there's been talk now of music and all sorts of stuff. So show up. A poorly run speed run, I've heard, is a possibility. So if you're interested, show up. I would very much appreciate it. I'll make sure that I'm wearing cute and maybe scandalous things if that like incentivizes you at all.
Nice. Yeah, always. So do you have any idea, a ballpark of when you are going to be on the show?
No, there's a number of things I'm signed up for.
Okay.
And I literally was like, I have no life. I will do anything at any hour, so once we have the full schedule, I will, on my TikTok, I will make a TikTok saying exactly when I'm going to be there.
Okay. I am going to reach out to Cole and see if there, if she needs any help or if there's any slots still open and that she needs filled, because I would love to, help with that. That would be amazing. Mimi is our director of media, and she relies heavily on Planned Parenthood, loves them, wants to partner with them. So it sounds like a perfect thing for us to take part in if, like I said, if Cole needs any help with it. So yeah. I'm definitely going to reach out to them. That's awesome.
That'd be great.
That is awesome. So yeah, stay tuned. If you send me any information, we'll try and promote it any way we can, as far as like when you're going to be on, because, our chat loves you.
Twitch.tv/nonstopcultpop.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Great.
I think we're going to call that a show.
Great.
Have a great night, everybody, and stay tuned for Behind Open Doors with Jeannie.
Good night.